I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today our topic is going to be on relationships, and before we get started I want to acknowledge one very important relationship to me, and that is my mama. So I hope that you will humor me and engage with me in this, because trust me, it will sound better if y'all sing along with me. Happy birthday to Mama. So here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mom. Happy birthday to you. Yay! Thank you all so much. I don't have to be told how very blessed that I am that I still have my mama. I'm so fortunate to still have my mama because I know that she is my #1 fan. You see, every Wednesday morning, I know that she grabs her coffee and that she comes and looks for these videos to be posted on here. So that's the first thing I want to do for her this morning, because my mom has given me so much in this life, and I'm so very grateful. My mom has taught me a lot about gratitude. My mom has taught me a lot about, my health being my wealth, and my mom has taught me a lot about not making fun of other people, because that stuff can come back on you. So there's so many good values that my mom has taught me. But we're also going to look at those things today. I want us to think back to our parental relationships, and that's where a lot of the healing, the necessary healing, comes in our relationships. It's not just our parental, but that's some of it, and we're going to look at that today. But first off, I want to remind you of this before we get started. I want you just to contemplate this for a moment. Contemplate, what if all people had dysfunctional traits? What if they all come from families with dysfunctional traits, and just all people had these dysfunctional traits? Because what if as human beings we were just supposed to come here to evolve, to heal? But what if we're all supposed to learn healthy behaviors? What if that's what we're supposed to do? Rather than the things we have made up in our head about how life is supposed to be life, what if it's like this? If we let go of the old wounds and heal through our pain, then we can be empowered through our scars. What if that's what we're supposed to do? What if that was intended all along? People gauge themselves by comparison. As human beings, we compare our lives with other people, and we want to think other people's lives are better than our lives. Hence, we give ourselves a low self-esteem. But some of us with a low self-esteem look at people whose lives are worse than us and gives ourselves a high self-esteem. What if we didn't even have to do that as people? So this is why when I'm doing these videos and stuff, I try to get us to let go of those labels. However, I do understand and honor that we have developed these traits, which some of us call in recovery programs and stuff, or defects of character, shortcomings and stuff that we've developed through our survival skills through these traumatic childhoods or these traumatic experiences that we've had. So we're going to look at those things today, and I'm mostly going to refer to parents today. If you want to hear about partners and trauma and stuff too, we can get to that later. But today I want us just to think of the origin of our beings and where these thoughts come from. Because as a person who likes to look at our thoughts and perspectives, this is where I see a lot of the healing begins, is from the very start. So it's not to blame our parents, because trust, when you get to be 21 years old, you need to quit blaming your parents. I mean, there are a lot of people who didn't grow up in ideal childhoods, but it's more empowering for you to do the healing work than you are empowered. And we realize that these situations are catalysts for our highest and best growth if we choose to be. And that's who my heroes are, people who have empowered themselves through maybe not great circumstances, but they've come through with a better attitude and something that they have to offer. That they can write beautiful things that help me still today, even though they may be on the other side. Those are people that I admire and respect and look up to, and so that's what I hope to do. That's what I hope these videos do, though, is to let you know that you are not alone with your dreams, hopes, and aspirations, but you're also not alone with your pain, and those wounds and those scars and these, the things that we perceive as our reality as being, our fate. So let's look at that. I first off want to remind you, that I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, or psychiatrist, or anything like that. I'm not a scientist, but I like those things. I have a webpage called stacyforlife.com, and on this webpage I write a monthly blog, but also there's a description of the services that I provide as a life coach dealing with addiction, codependency, and grief. I'm not a substitute for any of the programs that deal with that. I am a supplement, because sometimes we just need that little extra oomph. Just somebody that can sit with us for an hour and help us to process some things, give us different thoughts and perspectives. Help us get, and cover that stuff on top of our soul. And that's the healing work that we talk about when we realize that we're not alone. So I want you to think about your relationship with your own mom right now. Sit with that for a moment. And if you label it good or bad, because chances are that she did the best that she could. I would like to think that our parents did the best that I could, although I acknowledge that some parents could have done better. I'm just saying that we don't know, and if you can think about what their parents did, that would be cool too, because then you kind of get a large gauge of why you turned out the way that you did with these traits that you picked up. You see, because it's just traits that we pick up, right? We pick up seemingly good traits and bad traits. Habits and traits, that we pick up. So with my mom, for instance, and I want you to think about your own mom and her mom or her family, but for my mom, is that her mom, she didn't have a good relationship growing up with her mom. She was actually raised by her grandmother. So she did have love and nurturing, but she was raised by her grandmother. So there was this alienation kind of with her and her mom, although later on they did have a relationship where they talked and stuff, but they were never really close. So hence when my mom had me, of course, she vowed she was never going to have that kind of relationship with her daughter, because that was very painful, for my mom. And so we ended up, instead, of course, we went to the other end. It was codependent, but nobody knew what codependence was back in those days, and nobody certainly knew, healthy relationships to non-healthy relationships and all of this. And I'm not saying that that was healthy or non-healthy. I'm not trying to judge that. I'm just trying to say that, I got so many great traits from my mom, but probably the codependent ones probably weren't the most helpful, to where I sought validation outside of myself, because I adored my mom. I'd always gotten validation from my mom. So when I looked for validation and wanted that kind of validation from other people, I couldn't get that kind of validation from other people, and that kind of love that my mom gave me from other people. At the same time, now I want y'all to think about your dad. So if your dad, what kind of relationship did he have? Because this is how we form our relationships of our intimate partners later, oftentimes, is that. So then when I think about the relationship with my dad, well, this is what happened. My dad's mom, he had 3 sisters, and it was just him. So he was very spoiled, but at the same time, having 3 sisters, he, was very perturbed. But because they picked on him because he was very spoiled. But his mom was like me. And when I mean like me, I mean like I was born on my grandma's birthday. So we were both Leos. And Leos are said to be bossy, but I would say we just delegate very well. So, he had that to contend with. So here's the thing is, when I was a little girl, we got along okay, except he didn't like all the questions that I asked. And I wanted to know why this, why that, and all of this. And he didn't want to answer those questions. He was emotionally unavailable to me, And so then when I got to be a teenager, I was more demanding about trying to get attention, whether it be positive or negative. And so we clashed, and we had a very volatile and sometimes even violent relationship. Then when I got to be a young woman, we were able to talk about philosophical things and psychological things, and we had long talks. I want to let you know, though, that this isn't healing, because then later on, when I got in my romantic relationships, I still chose emotionally unavailable men, that couldn't hear me, just like my dad couldn't hear me when I was younger, because that, even though he heard me later on in life, I still hadn't done that healing work from when I was a teenager. So I wasn't picking people that were, like me, because I still hadn't learned how to be validated on my own or anything else. So I was still looking for validation from people who couldn't hear me. So hence how I got into all this work myself that I help people with now today. So I want you to understand and see if you relate to any of that right now. So when you're thinking about your relationships with them and their relationships with their parents and such. Sorry, Grinch is choosing to be talkative right now. He wanted to tell Mom happy birthday. So in thinking of all of that, you know, where you're at. So then if you've had children, which I did, but if you haven't had yours yet, just wait. So our parents oftentimes tell us, just wait till you have your own kids. Well, that's really more loaded than we hear when they tell us that, because when we have our own kids, oftentimes we don't realize the pain that we inflicted on our own parents until we have our own kids. We don't realize how far we will go to try to protect our own kids, because oftentimes we love our kids more than we love ourselves. And if we haven't healed ourselves, that's why we haven't learned how to love ourselves, if we haven't gone through that healing process. And I'm just saying, when I say heal ourselves, it's usually not alone. We can't heal ourselves alone usually. It requires the help of another person to love and nurture us and to be able to sit with us with non-judgment, with no intention for the outcome of the whole thing, with no emotional attachment. That's really helpful in our healing. And so that's what I had with a life coach, you know, and she loved and nurtured me too. But at the same time, I was able to talk about and not, you know, be refuted or questioned about anything that I might say is my perspective, because just because it's my perspective doesn't mean it wasn't always true. It was coming from whatever it was inside of me. So that's what we have to understand in our own thoughts and perspectives in our healing process. So that was really deep, wasn't it, y'all? So when you're coming from that, like what the perspective is that we see things different. Two people can be looking at a thing and see the same thing, but not see it the same way. So that's where your perspectives may differ. And so your healing work is your healing work, you know, and it has to be done with somebody who can't differ with that perspective, or even if they do, that they have a different idea come from it, you know, where you can heal. That's not emotionally attached to it, is what I'm trying to say. So once you get into that healing work, you get into that forgiveness work. When you get into that forgiveness work, you can get into loving yourself, because it's oftentimes when we think that from those perspectives of lack, you know, we develop this esteem that we don't deserve. And the reality is that we do deserve, but that we have to find that ourselves. So when we can forgive ourselves and let go of the judgments that we might have placed on somebody else, realizing and giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they did the best that they could with what they knew. You know, with my mom and I, we grew up together. My mom had me at a very young age. Now, I did not have my daughter at a very young age, but when I worked on my codependence, she was with me. When I had to learn how to work to set boundaries, when I had to learn how to work to choose the relationships that I wanted and to empower myself by saying no to the relationships that didn't resonate with what my soul's desire was, my daughter got to sit and watch that. So she in turn has very good boundaries and stuff. So you know, but there's things that I'm sure that about me that she wants to heal from, because that's part of our evolution. See, when we are young, I don't know about y'all, but for me, even though my mom taught me gratitude, being the other part of the spectrum, my dad, I probably, you know, I either inherited genetically the addiction from my dad or sociologically, but, you know, some people choose to call the disease a disorder. See, this is why I don't like labels, is because some people just, you know, go back. They can see it better as a disorder, but not a disease. And so whichever way you choose to see it is fine. It's those behaviors underneath of self-centeredness, self-loathing, self-sabotaging, those things, self, that we need to be aware of and check out and look at. So once we can realize those behaviors and see, so I didn't have much gratitude as a teen. If things were going well, I was happy. But if things didn't go well as a young adult, then I would be very pissed off. And so being pissed off might tend to make me, I'd be like, well, I want to move out then. But see, I hadn't done healing work. So do you get to stay moved out when that happens, when you get pissed off and you just move out? Sometimes people do, but then maybe your health is going to fail in an area, or maybe something else is going to fail in another area. It's about being aligned, divine and rightly aligned. So when you do the healing work, and it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to go back home, but to do the healing work, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to stay in that relationship. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be able to accept this, but it doesn't mean that you're going to have to label it and go from the old brain stuff that I talked about last week, the flight, fight, or freeze, the trauma responses. See, healing is moving past those trauma responses on up to here, to where you're able to go to the frontal lobe more so than the back one, than the old responses, and that's the learning part. So when you can go to the learning part, you're learning. And sometimes we can't always be learning, so the good thing is to have that balance, like I talked about in the middle. You don't want to render yourself defenseless to where you're always learning and intellectual, and you can't grapple on the other stuff. So, finding that balance in the middle to where you're able to continue learning, but you're also alert and aware, So that's, part of our healing process is to become aware. And that's, usually if we're, right on, if I could write a book, I would say at 21, you need to start working on your healing process, because all of us have a healing process. Most all of us have something, because there's something that drives all of us. We can be driven with right intentions, that are for all of our highest and best good, or if we are driven from wrong intentions, then it's just going to be, maybe temporary and not suitable, and we won't get the practice and development through the process of things, because going through the process of things really is a practice and development. Like when you look at codependency and you just read the book, well, that's intellectualizing it. The practice and development part is where you learn to set those boundaries, because you can't just read the book and then be like, okay, I have to set a boundary with you. It's like when somebody triggers you, then you learn, okay, how would a grown adult talk about this rather than, get pissed off and stomp out of the room or something like this? Then they would say, you know what, I think I need to go now, and I would like to talk to you later if that's okay, but right now I just need to, take care of myself and everything. Being able to take care of yourself, that's something that we learn, is that self-love. There's things that we do to love ourselves, and taking care of ourselves is one. So there's different, I think, evolutions to us being able to take care of ourselves, and there's different stages of our lives that we take care of ourselves, and I think that that's totally normal. Sometimes it comes from pain, and sometimes maybe, I think as we get older, we don't have to have our asses kicked as hard as we used to. So I'm trying to think of what else it was I was trying to say. I've recorded this several times and had different interruptions and stuff, so I get off the track. I want to say that, and the humor part of celebrating my mom's birthday is, that there were times where my brothers said as teenagers that my mom and I reminded them of Eunice and Mama, if you ever watched Carol Burnett. And so when she signed off, she would always do like this, telling her mama, goodbye, because she loved her mama, and I love my mama very much too. And I know that she did the best that she could, and I did the best that I could, and my daughter will do the best that she can, and it's just evolution. So if I could tell anybody anything, life is too short right now for you to judge people around you, but I understand that maybe you have to judge people to be able to take care of yourself, but that's really not healing. The healing work comes from being able to go within and to, be able to say, this is what hurt me, but not just talk about it. Talk with somebody who's safe and feel those feelings again, and be able to reunite with yourself in another way, so you can get another thought and perspective, instead of just keep talking, intellectualizing those thoughts and those thoughts from all those times back. Being able to sit with that with somebody you trust and feel your feelings and cry and grieve and mourn that and get over that. Get it out of your system. I'm not saying that you'll ever get over it, but I'm just saying that get it out of your system to where you don't feel like you have to talk about it and keep attracting that you're able to get a different thought and perspective on that, so that And I'm not saying that it's going to be rose-colored or we're going to flower it up. It's just empowering you. Let somebody help you empower yourself because you lived through this stuff. You know, some of you had very traumatic times, and you're still living, you're still standing, you're still breathing, and you still have a purpose. And, you know, it's oftentimes people don't believe that they have value or worth when they've suffered. But that's where most of your value and worth is found. You know, for many people, those are my heroes, those people who have overcome those challenges, you know, and so that's what drives me to try to help other people overcome challenges. And I've overcome challenges myself, but I don't take those challenges personally. I take it as part of my evolution, you know, is that I know that nobody intended to hurt me. You know, if I was hurt by anything, my dad didn't intend to hurt me. My mom didn't intend to hurt me. They did the best that they could. My dad wanted to put clothes on me and send me to school. My mom wanted to, you know, love and nurture me. And that's what they did. They did that too. And then the other things are just things that just happen. It's just stuff that we all get to grow from, you know. We all grow from those things. So I hope that this video has been helpful, and I hope that you will, you know, take into consideration taking some healing. And if you have a grievance with a family member at this time, I'm not saying that you have to be able to sit with that family member. It's good if you can sit with that family member and have boundaries. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have to set those boundaries for yourself. You have to allow yourself to say, I'm going to spend this amount of time with this family member because I know that after an hour we start fighting. But I love this person, or I'm going to spend this amount of time with this family member. Some of you are able to do that. Some maybe not so much. Some of you, your family member has moved on. And so you just need to work through that healing process with somebody that you trust that can love you through that process so that you can attract different into your lives. Because as we did that exercise looking back at our mothers and our fathers, I want you to think about that for a minute before we close, and how that has affected your life with your partners today, because it's not your partner's fault, you know, that you've chosen. It's not these people that you've chosen. Those people were chosen for your higher evolution. And that may sound mean and that may sound cold, but, you know, you are a smart person, I believe. I know many people who are smart people who have had, you know, screwed up relationships, myself included. And I've taken responsibility that I have chose these relationships for my higher and greater development, that practice and growth for my evolution to my higher and greater self. And that's what you've done too. So sit with that, you know, and as I always say, I will give you all 30 minutes of my time if you would like a quick time to try to, I can't tell you I'm going to fix your life in 30 minutes. I'm not even trying to say that at all. But if you're in a place in your life where you're feeling very, very challenged, and I want to remind you that, you know, your gratitude comes from challenges. If you didn't have challenges, you wouldn't have gratitude. So these are things that have gone on forever and ever. We wouldn't even have these words if it wasn't something that really happened. And why we think that we ourselves, you know, it's pretty arrogant to think that we ourselves aren't supposed to have troubles in our lives, you know, and that things aren't supposed to go up and down, that there's not a rhythm to this universe and this life. So it's pretty arrogant to think that, because these things have always happened, and we develop gratitude from the challenges. We have to understand that at one time, our pros were probably our cons, and that we practiced and developed, and they're now pros, that there's no plateau to get to. We just continue to grow. So again, I hope this video has been helpful to you, and you can email me at stacyreinick@gmail.com if you need 30 minutes of my time just to help you get your thoughts organized and decorated for a period of time. Because I want us all to make it in 2021. We're still going through some changes. I believe that everything that's happened has been, whatever you're buying into, belief, whether or not you're focusing your attention on politics, whether or not you're focusing your attention on 5G, whether or not you're focusing your attention on the ecological thing, it's all working together for our healing process. The pandemic itself calls for healing. So we're healing in all these different ways. The ones that I just stated, but we're also healing internally. Because if we're internally healing, then we're going to have a better and higher immune system when we don't take the things that are happening out here personally and understand that we are part of a bigger development, a bigger and brighter picture. See, Because when we don't feel isolated, we feel a part of, and we know that we're expansive. So that's what these videos are intended to do on a weekly basis. Is there's so many people that are just, sitting there in front of their computers or in front of their TVs. And so I want you to understand that there's other people too that feel just like you. That there's other people too who have had these challenges, that you are not alone. So, I hope that this has been helpful once again. And I hope that you feel a little bit more connected if you did not before we started. And I look forward to connecting with you again next week. And I thank you so much for your time. It's very valuable to me. Sorry. And I'll see you again next week. And again, happy beautiful birthday to my mama. I love you. Bye now. Wish you much peace and love. Now bye. Sorry, I got off.